I begin with Sarmad Shaheed, the martyr Sarmad. See, this poem is the result of my visit to the Jama Masjid in Delhi a couple of years ago. Um, Jama Masjid is that grand mosque built by Shah Jahan, and the eastern gate of the Jama Masjid, which has a flight of steps as if going up to the sky, that kind of a grandeur you can see there. Sarmad Shaheed is the martyr Shaheed. He was a Sufi saint. He was beheaded at the orders of Aurangzeb, the emperor, the all-powerful emperor. My take on him. Sarmad Shaheed. The king is naked, cried the innocent child. Power is naked, the unsheathed sword. Truth is naked too, innocence can see it. The two often clash in battle, sparks flying. Sticking to nudity is the ultimate truth speaking. That's what Sarmad did, the absolute unconformity outside the frames of the established. If Mansur al-Hallaj declared, I am the truth, chanting Anal Haq, Sarmad did something similar, saying only the La ilaha part of the kalima, leaving out illa Allah, perhaps implying there is no God outside but within oneself. Dazed by the unraveling, Aurangzeb had him beheaded outside the eastern gate of the Juma Masjid, where the headless Sarmad danced on the steps, carrying his head in his hands before giving up the ghost, as the legend goes. Now, this is there in the City of Jinns by William Dalrymple. He's around somewhere here. Standing on the very steps, I frame a picture of his red dargah below with the Kila-e-Muala, or the exalted fortress, which was eventually reduced to the simple Lal Kila to suit the latter-day reality of total decrepitude looming in the skyline behind. So this happens with absolute power. It doesn't stay, the kind of result that comes from total authority is the eventual decrepitude. The second poem is titled Ghalib's Haveli in Balimaran Road. The great Urdu poet, all-time great Urdu poet Ghalib. His house, Haveli, is a grand house, is on the Balimaran Road. It's just a little off the Jama Masjid. Ghalib's Haveli in Balimaran Road. The timeless poet shares his home now with a shop. Never mind, faring better than many of Delhi's beloved bards who upheld the Ganga Jamuni Tasib and yet have left no earthly trace. One can only gaze around at the relics of his life with a lump rising to one's throat. Such exalted conceits, wordcraft, humor, unbending sense of honor bruised by history's nasty turns, perpetually in debt, yet never perturbed in his angelic self, homeless, ever roaming in spirit, he would have little value for a majestic dwelling place like this. He would even forgive the garish facelift given to his long-lived in one-time quarters. He knows these and the countless tomes churned out about him are well-meaning attempts to keep his memory alive. He would even forgive this, my lame verse, in his name. These languages. Now the poetry is language. So this is a poem titled Language, written many years ago. Language. Arguments, counter-arguments, visceral, passionate, words and phrases beating a hasty retreat and then peeping back, trembling in mortal fear. Reason or logic has no space here. Words are used to spray venom. What is said is not what is meant. Words are used only because a knife or a bullet is forbidden by the law. The flow of arguments freezes at one point, like a northern river that freezes into ice in winter. Writing. The afterlife of the written text, following the interpretations by readers, marks the thaw. Slowly, steadily, the flow resumes, albeit through the icebergs of obtuse points. The next one is a love poem written long ago. It's titled, Like After the First Rains. Like after the first rains, lush vegetation sprouts. Now there will be new life, the old receding in our memory. It is the epiphany we both were searching. It's not you giving or I taking, it's we together seeking. The softness of a fresh bloomed flower, the cadence of a soul-stirring raga, the fragrance of the elangi flower, like lips open in a soft smile. When life overflows, our bodies open up to receive each other tenderly, tenderly, making us a single soul and body. Vagartham Parvati Parameshwar. The next poem is titled In the Eyes of the Beholder. In the Eyes of the Beholder. It was a dream, and as dreams go, the details are vague. And Coleridge-like, I committed to this digital file what was fresh in my memory once I woke up. I was rolling on the marsh from where the waters of the backwater had receded at low tide. Most unnaturally, the ground was firm, the grass blades smoothed over by a deposit of silt, but miraculously not forming slush. I rolled on such a floor, and there was no dirt sticking to my shirt, its snow-white appearance not sullied. Those standing around us claimed, "You're rolling in mud. Get out of it before the high tide swells, before it is too late to save yourself." But I looked at myself, found that I was spick and span, and told the onlookers so. They gazed on far at the horizon as the tsunami wave of total annihilation was sweeping its way up. Thank you.
I'm very happy to be here today to get an opportunity to read my poems. This year, I published 3 volumes of poetry, and I'll be reading from these 3 collections. The first poem I'm going to read to you is something which is quite close to my heart because it deals with my name. And since we are talking about language today, my first name is Jewish, and just about everybody gets it wrong. And so I had it as the first poem in my opening collection. It says, "Say my name." You say Malachi, 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 at worst, Malaukai, which in Chinese means monkey. I say Malachi, Kai, as in Chi Square. You say what you hear, not what I say. I hear what you say, not what I want to hear. Thank you. My last name is Vethamani, very Indian, and my grandparents came from Tamil Nadu in Tirunelveli. A few years ago, I had the opportunity of visiting my aunt, and from that, I wrote a poem which is entitled Atte's Asirvadam. As you laid your hand on my head and made the sign of the cross, on my forehead, you lifted all the curses that had weighed me down. An act of love from one I had known and met just hours ago and called Atte for the first time. A physical journey taken over unfamiliar land back to my father's village restored my spirit. Having shared a meal, as we rose to depart, I heard a voice say, Asirvadam Kudinga. You held me and blessed me in your tears and love, with your tears and love, and I nearly drowned as I emerged with tear-stained joy. Thank you. The next poem comes from my first collection of poetry. It's called It's Complicated. It's complicated. Our lives are a mess, and so we fashionably say it's complicated. We still hold hands in the car. You gently remove yours, steer the car, and return it as before. But it's not as before. The years have been good to us, yet when I have your hand in mine, I wonder if it is mine you feel or another's. I know every line in your slightly coarse palm, the calluses and soft ridges. What do you feel, my love? I remember when we were not complicated, in love and loved. Now we love, but not quite as before. We have not moved on and have chosen to stay. Untangling is not a choice. Complicated is difficult, but we will manage complicated and love the way only we can. The next poem is called Incinerate Me. You burned the picture of us you once carried in your wallet. You were to feel free, unbound and set free. That peace and calm you yearned for eluded you. Burn the picture of me you still carry in your heart. You might finally be freed of me. The next poem I'm going to read to you is the title poem from this new collection which came out a few months ago. It's called Rambutan Kisses. I'm sure you have rambutans in India too, right? It's quite a common fruit. The first word, tapao, means, is a Chinese word. It means pack. You know, Malaysia is a multilingual country, so we use words from various languages, and I speak Cantonese. Not well, but I know quite a lot, enough to get by. Rambutan kisses. Tapao for me, your rambutan kisses. When you are gone, I will take each one out and be kissed one at a time, alone by myself. They will give me solace in your absence. Each rambutan kiss, my silent companion, my solitude, until you return and kiss me, brushing your bristle on my welcoming lips. This poem is entitled The Thought of Us. For all that you did and undid me, I have stopped loving you. For all that I did and what it did to me, I have stopped loving me. For all that you were, for all that I wanted to be, and for all that we could have been, I still love the thought of us. I'm going to read two poems which I wrote during the lockdown, and the first one is called In the Red Zone. Stay in, stay away, stay put. Mind the line, mind the meter, mind your distance. Put on the mask, put up the set procedures, put away your passport, defer your holidays, defer your payments, defer your life. No shaking hands, no hugs, no kisses for now. Don't bend the rules, break the circuit, save lives. And the next poem is entitled Hugs. Now that it's safe to hug again, hug all those you once hugged, those you hugged behind closed doors, those you stole a hug between shelves, those whose hands you squeezed, hoping you weren't seen, those whose shoulders you grazed as if by accident. When it's safe to hug again, hug, hug, hug. You don't know when virtual hugs will come upon us again. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here this afternoon and to hear our words and to hear poetry. I'm going to read a few poems from my collection of poetry called We Live in the Newness of Small Differences. And this one is called Lightning Never Strikes in Straight Lines. Lightning never strikes in straight lines. You learn the redundancy of flower pots barefoot on a rooftop after a storm, standing amongst greener leaves and bleeding terracotta. However, to view spilt milk with dry eyes is to see the spillover as clouds on the floor, to let a cat in and watch her lap up the sky. To live through such sandpaper days, you must savor the rough edges and make your bed until you find last year's beliefs lying fabric still amongst its creases. How to breed lilacs. First, learn not to stereotype months. Then walk on all fours, sniffing the garden soil, stop at the warmest patch of earth. Then dig. Dig deep, delve with love, do not use a shovel. Dig until your ankles are covered. Upturn minerals until the earthworms tickle your toes. Always use your hands for everything. Watch out for the microscopic snails who live behind trails softer than your fingers make. If you have powdered bones, sprinkle them with ceremony without hurting others. Calcium works faster than singing softly to growing plants. Plant the tiny, the new, the world condensed in a grain full of potential seeds. Another piece of advice, do not use adjectives unless you need them. So, revised, plant those seeds. Use more water for libation. Nothing else purifies, nothing else soaks the soil, mixing memory with desire. Afterwards, wash your fingernails clean. Return to the kitchen, make yourself a cup of tea. Again you will find the uses of water. Cup in hand, sit down by the window. You will see the seeds bursting out, the roots traveling in tunnels deeper than your reach. Then you will see the branches growing, spreading out, those gray-brown birds reaching towards everywhere. You will see lilacs clustering, each petal singular, designed with your fingerprints. Thank you. This one is called Salt. It was partly inspired by Han Kang's novel The Vegetarian. Salt. We sit at the table passing around the blame. No one takes a slice. An animal tries to warn us, but we have her for dinner. We were hungry. Tomorrow we will warm up the leftovers. We wait for water. A few hours without it is terrible, but we have been told that the body will adjust. For now, a sandstorm in the throat, but later, certain, like bark. One of us is convinced that she is no longer an animal. More veins, less blood. We avoid looking at the tall glass with stems of cut flowers, unseasonal heat. Our impatient children stick their fingers into the peach to prize out a stone. A center so hard you'd feel lucky to find rings instead of ribs, and where her toes were before, a complication of roots. Shoot nothing from your mouth but a calm that confirms that not all rainfall is benediction. Imagine this. A sanitary kitchen, windows, tiles, spoons made of wood, and a row of potted plants, stomata sparkling like salt. That dawn was chlorophyll stained. Her wants become simpler: air, liquid, light. No, don't imagine this. Become a paradox so clean it cannot be touched. Let us compare the sharpness of vibes. We have not come far. It is the forest that recedes farther away from our reach. Another animal tries to warn us. We can feel our teeth growing warm. Our reluctance goes cold. Afterwards, we will paint our grief. This is the first poem in my collection. It's called An Enclosure. An enclosure not in language, but something more private and hence inseparable, like a birthmark on the thigh. This need to eat, to chew before swallowing what does not happen to me happens elsewhere after all. I was not always here. I'm often not present. In my dream, for example, a dank yellow sky, pinks up in patches, hangs unkindly over a little town flooded. The electricity wires snap, and I am hauling 2 large suitcases on ropes to a rooftop with my brother. Between the effort of it and the waking up are a few minutes of sleep paralysis where someone not in the room tells me, you are not going to be able to see the world anymore. You have no will to live. Next to my bed, a jar with water, stale from stems, and a line drops into my head, which I save for later. Sick with feeling feelings of an imminent loss, the news is pushed into my room like a mass of small animals, bleached coral dead. What we cannot measure, we are happy to let go. What does not happen to us, we are likely to forget. There is a pettiness in clocks. Admit it now, you love all your things. Illicit, the lilies lie, they want to know, what is time to trees? This is the last one I'm going to read for the afternoon. It's a love poem, it's called What Will Be Glass? What will be glass? We had not fallen asleep, but had we woken up before? A room so incorrigibly bright that all walls were windows. Someone laughing outside, neck deep in winter grass. You thought that last night's brain fever sailed in right through with that laughter. Well, my version is more fiction, less fog, or the comfort in darkness. Were we counting clouds or the number of evening walkers looking up at clouds? Nothing beyond our fingers in any case. Over fields, white bodies of birds puncturing a less white sky. A deer, or as usual, endless dog bark. April's slow hours stretched without and wrapped around a sapling's thin arms. If we're lucky, we will never remember the same details. A strange belonging or some strange light. Thank you.
This is my hometown, so I'll be reading my poems in Kannada. But before that, I want to read one English poem for those who don't understand Kannada. This is called Salvation, and it opens with a quote from A.K. Ramanujan. Remembering can be the means to salvation. 1. Salad days. Oh, they were tender, green, leafy, and raw, fresh cut as in the breaking in of a cold, wild as the first flight of a nameless bird, floating about the narrow, dark alleys, searching for a parking spot to land and indulge in some peeling, slicing, and sucking of juices with matching exclamations. Everything got soaked and sprouted. Those were the days of talking and taking. Fasting days. Everything resembled a dish. Denial was the mantra. Do not the anthem. Pangs hit the diaphragm. Aching heart, intestines, and mouth drying. To chew was a curse, to swallow a punishment. Hungry forever, thirsty every minute, vastness taking over dilated pupils. To fast was to preserve, to consume was to serve. We were on a diet and we meant to quiet the heart, the intestine, lungs, legs, and the unmentionables in anticipation of the next feast. Desert days. And then there was pudding of all sorts. Cream, cakes, nuts, fruits, exotic ethnic sweets. It was time to indulge. How many poems make a day? How many dreams make an hour? How does the metaphor bird build nests on railings? Who needs to sanction these constructions? Those were the days of extravaganza and a phone call away, a filling pizza. Salvation. And it happened one day. It was getting crowded. His elusive multiple beings engulfed in that one single second. He, the Lord of Blue Waters, lost his every appetite and left. The Jain monks call it Salekhan. If to remember is to find salvation, to forget is to be cursed to return to life. Now, because this session is called Poetry is Language, you know, in Kannada, the women, the language, the male language is very much available, and we had to struggle to find the female language for writing poetry. Because I'll just give you one example. Angelinaಳ ಮೊಲೆಗಳು ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಪದ್ಯ ಬರೆದು ಕಳಿಸ್ತೀನಿ ನಾನು. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಆಂಜಲಿನಾ ಜೋಲಿ. ಅವಳು ತನ್ನ ಮೊಲೆಯನ್ನು ಕತ್ತರಿಸಿಕೊಂಡಾಗ ಆಂಜಲಿನಾಳ ಮೊಲೆಗಳು ಅಂತ. ಪೇಪರ್ ಅವರು ಮೊಲೆಗಳು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ತೆಗೆದಾಕ್ಬಿಟ್ರು. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ದೇವರ್ ಓಕೆ ವಿತ್ ಸ್ತನಗಳು. ಗಂಡಸರು ಸ್ತನಗಳು ಅಂತ ಬರೆದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಓಕೆ, ಹೆಂಗಸರು ಮೊಲೆಗಳು ಅಂತ ಬರೀಬಾರ್ದು ಅಂತ ಬರೀ ಆಂಜಲಿನಾಳ ಅಂತ ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಪೇಪರ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಕಟ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಆಂಜಲಿನಾಳ ಮೊಲೆಗಳು. ಲಾರಾ ಕ್ರಾಫ್ಟ್ ಟೂಮ್ ರೈಡರ್ ನೋಡಿದ ರಾತ್ರಿ, ಕುವೆಂಪು ವರ್ಣಿಸಿದಂತೆ ಸುರ ಸರೋವರದಲ್ಲಿ ದೇವ ಕುಂಜರಗಳು ಬಿದ್ದು ಒದ್ದಾಡಿದವು. ತ್ರಿಲೋಕ ಸುಂದರಿಯ ಕಣ್ಸೆಳೆಯುವ ಮೊಲೆಗಳೆದುರು ಈಜಿಪ್ಟಿನ ಗೋರಿಗಳ ನಿಧಿ ಸಪ್ಪೆ ಎಂದು ಬಾಯಿ ಚಪ್ಪರಿಸಿದ ಪುರುಷ ಸಾಮ್ರಾಜ್ಯ ಕರುಬಿ ಹೆಣ್ಣು ಲೋಕ ಜೋಲಿ ಹೊಡೆಯಿತು. ಪರಿಪೂರ್ಣ ಸೌಷ್ಠವ ಸೌಂದರ್ಯದ ಪರಾಕಾಷ್ಠೆ ಆಳಿದಳು ಕಮಲಾ ಕುಚ ಚೂಚುಕದ ರಾಣಿ. ಅವನ್ನೆರಡು ಮೆಡಲುಗಳಂತೆ ಪ್ರದರ್ಶನಕ್ಕಿಟ್ಟು ಒಪ್ಪಿಕೊಂಡಳು, ಹೌದು ತನಗಿದೆ ವಿಕೃತ ಕಾಮದಾಹ, ದ್ವಿಲಿಂಗಾಕರ್ಷಣೆ ವ್ಯಸನೆ. ಚುಚ್ಚಿಸಿಕೊಂಡಳು ಮೈ ಮೇಲೆ ಹಚ್ಚೆ ಸಾಲು, ಚಿಂತಿಸಿದಳು ತನ್ನ ಪೋಷಿಸುವುದೇ ಕೊನೆಗೆ ನಾಶಕಾರಣವೆಂದು. ಮುದ್ದು ಕೆಂಪು ತುಟಿಗಳ ನಂಜಿಗೆ ಬಲಿಯಾಗಲಾರೆ ಕಾಲನ ಕಠಿಣ ಕೈಕೋಳಕ್ಕೆ. ಹೆದರಿ 6 ಮಕ್ಕಳ ತಾಯಿ ಕತ್ತರಿಸಿಕೊಂಡಳೆ ಹಾಲು ಉಡಿದ ಮೊಲೆಗಳ. ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಹೆಣ್ತನಕ್ಕೆ ಧಕ್ಕೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ತತ್ತರಿಸುತ್ತಿವೆ ಪುರುಷ ಮೃಗಗಳೆಲ್ಲ. ಒಣಗಿ ಬಾಯಿ ಇನ್ನು ಮೇಲೆ ಆಂಜಲಿನಾ ಜೋಲಿ ಎಂದರೆ ಜೊಲ್ಲು ಸುರಿಯುವುದಿಲ್ಲ. ಓಕೆ, ಎರಡನೇದು ನನ್ನ ಮುದುಕಿಯರಿದು ಕಾಲವಲ್ಲ ಸಂಕಲನದ್ದು. ಸ್ತ್ರೀ, ಈ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ನು ಮನುಸ್ಮೃತಿಯಲ್ಲಿದೆ. ಮನುಸ್ಮೃತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರುವ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ನ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಇದು ಬರೆದಿರೋದು. ಸ್ತ್ರೀಗೆ ಒಬ್ಬನೇ ಗಂಡನಿದ್ದರೆ ಪತಿವ್ರತೆ, ಇಬ್ಬರಿದ್ದರೆ ಕುಲಟೆ, ಮೂವರಿದ್ದರೆ ದೃಷ್ಟೆ, ನಾಲ್ವರಿದ್ದರೆ ಪುಂಶ್ಚಲಿ, 5 ಗಂಡಂದಿರಿದ್ದರೆ ವೇಶ್ಯೆ, 7-8 ಪುಂಗಿ, ಅದಕ್ಕೂ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿದ್ದರೆ ಮಹಾವೇಶ್ಯೆ. ಶೂದ್ರನ ಸಂಘ ಮಾಡಿದ ಬ್ರಾಹ್ಮಣ ಸ್ತ್ರೀ 14 ದೇವೇಂದ್ರರ ಕಾಲದವರೆಗೆ 1000 ಜನ್ಮಗಳ ಕಾಲ ಹೆಣ್ಣು ಕಾಗೆಯಾಗಿ, 100 ಜನ್ಮ ಹೆಣ್ಣು ಹಂದಿಯಾಗಿ, 100 ಜನ್ಮ ಹೆಣ್ಣು ನರಿಯಾಗಿ, 100 ಜನ್ಮ ಹೆಣ್ಣು ಕೋಳಿಯಾಗಿ, 7 ಜನ್ಮ ಹೆಣ್ಣು ಪಾರಿವಾಳವಾಗಿ, 7 ಜನ್ಮ ಹೆಣ್ಣು ಕಪಿಯಾಗಿ, ತದನಂತರ ಭೂಮಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಚಾಂಡಾಲಿಯಾಗಿ ಹುಟ್ಟಿ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಜಾರಿಯೂ ರೋಗಿಯೂ ಅಗಸರವಳು ಆಗಿ ಹುಟ್ಟಿ, ನಂತರ ಕುಷ್ಠರೋಗದಿಂದ ಬಳಲುವ ಗಾಣಗಿತ್ತಿಯಾಗಿ ಬದುಕಿ ಸತ್ತು ಶುದ್ಧಳಾಗುವಳು ಅಂತೆ. ಸತಿಪತಿವ್ರತೆಯ ಆ ಒಬ್ಬನೇ ಗಂಡನೇ ಮತ್ತೆ ಆ ಕುಲಟೆ, ದೃಷ್ಟೆ, ಪುಂಶ್ಚಲಿ, ವೇಶ್ಯೆ, ಪುಂಗಿ, ಮಹಾವೇಶ್ಯೆಗಳ ಸಂಘ ಮಾಡುವವನು ಅವನು ಮುಂದಿನ ಜನ್ಮದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಂತ್ರಿಯಾಗಿ ಹುಟ್ಟುವನು. ನಂದೊಂದು ಕೌಬಾಯ್ಸ್ ಮತ್ತು ಕಾಮಪುರಾಣ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಸಂಕಲನದ ಒಂದು ಪದ್ಯ ಇದು. ಮತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮ ಮಹಿಳೆಯ ಮತ್ತು ಕಾವ್ಯ ಭಾಷೆ ಇದಕ್ಕೆಲ್ಲ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಂಗೆ ಈ ISIS ಭಯೋತ್ಪಾದಕ ಅಲಿ ಸಖ್ರ್ ಅಲ್ ಖಾಸೀಮ್ ಧರ್ಮದ ಹೆಸರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಲ್ಲಬೇಡ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ತಾಯಿಯನ್ನೇ ಗುಂಡಿಟ್ಟು ಕೊಂದ. ಇದು ನಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ತಿರದ ನಮ್ಮದೊಂದು ಕತೆಗೂ ಕೊಂಡಿ ಹಾಕ್ಬೋದು ಅಂತ ಬರೆದಿರೋದು. ರೇಣುಕೆಯ ಮಗ. ಪತ್ನಿಯ ಶಿರಚ್ಛೇದ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಗೊಂದಲವಾಗಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ನಿನಗೆ ಮಾತೃಹತ್ಯೆಯ ಶಾಪ. ವಿಷ್ಣುವಿನ ಅವತಾರವಂತೆ ನೀನು, ಚಿರಂಜೀವಿ ಬೇರೆ. ಈಗ ರಾಖಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಅವತರಿಸಿದ್ದೀಯ ಮಗನೇ ಅಲಿ ಸಖ್ರ್. ಸಿರಿಯಾದ ಗಡಿ ದಾಟಿ ಪರಶಿವನೇ ಕೊಟ್ಟ ಪಿಸ್ತೂಲು ಹಿಡಿದು ಪಿತೃವಾಕ್ಯ ಪರಿಪಾಲಕ ಹಾರಿಸಿಯೇ ಬಿಟ್ಟೆ ಗುಂಡು, ಸಂತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ 1000 ಕಣ್ಣುಗಳ ಸಾಕ್ಷಿಯಲ್ಲಿ. ನಾನಂದೆ ಬೇಡ ಮಗ, ನಂಬಬೇಡ ಅಮೇರಿಕಾದ ಬೆಂಬಲ. ಅಳಿಸುವುದು ಅದು ನಮ್ಮ ಧರ್ಮವನ್ನು, ಅಳಿಸಬೇಡ ನಂಬು ಹೆತ್ತವಳ ಮಾತನ್ನು. ಬೇಡುತ್ತೇನೆ ಹೊರಟು ಬಿಡೋಣ, ಬೇಡ ಛಲ ನಡಿ. ಕೊಲ್ಲಬಹುದು ಮಗ ಅವರು ನಿನ್ನನ್ನು ಬಹಿರಂಗವಾಗಿ, ಅರಳುವ ಮೊದಲೇ ಹೆಣವಾಗಬೇಡ ಅಂದೆ. ಕೇಳಲಿಲ್ಲ ನೀನು, ಬದಲಿಗೆ ದೂರು ಕೊಟ್ಟೆ. ಜಮದಗ್ನಿ ಹೇಳಿದರೂ ಕೋಪ ನಿಯಂತ್ರಿಸಲಿಲ್ಲ ಕಂದ. ಮಲಪ್ರಭೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಿನ್ನ ರಕ್ತ ಸಿಕ್ತ ಕೊಡಲಿ ತೊಳೆದಾಗ ನದಿಯೆಲ್ಲ ಕೆಂಪಾಗಿ ಬಟ್ಟೆ ಒಗೆಯುತ್ತಿದ್ದ ಹೆಂಗಸರೆಲ್ಲ ಬೆಚ್ಚಿದರಲ್ಲ. ಅವರೇ ಹುಟ್ಟಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ರಾಖಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಬುರುಕಾದೊಳಗೆ ಅವಿತು ಶಪಿಸುತ್ತಾರೆ. ಎಲ್ಲವೋ ಅಲಿ ಉರ್ಫ್ ಪರಶುರಾಮ, ನಿನಗೆ ಸಾವಿಲ್ಲ, ಪ್ರಾಯಶ್ಚಿತ್ತವಿಲ್ಲ, ಕ್ಷಮೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಬರಲಿಲ್ಲ ಬುದ್ಧಿ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಹುಟ್ಟಿ ಸಿರಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಕೊಂದಿರುವೆ ಹೆತ್ತವಳ ಮಗನೇ. ಇದೇ ನಿನಗೆ ನರಕ, ರೌರವದ ಝಳ. ಯಾವ ಮಹೇಂದ್ರ ಪರ್ವತದ ತಪಸ್ಸು ತೊಳೆಯಲಾಗದು ನಿನ್ನ ಪಾಪ. ಸತ್ತವಳ ಮರಳಿ ಬದುಕಿಸುವ ಕಲೆ ತಿಳಿದಿಲ್ಲ ಅವರಿಗೆ. ತಲೆ ಅದಲು ಬದಲಾಗಿ ರೇಣುಕೆ ಎಲ್ಲಮ್ಮನಾಗಿ ಕಣ್ಣೀರಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಡುತ್ತಾರೆ ಜೋಗತಿಯರು. ಸೆರಗು ಹಾಸುತ್ತಾ ಶಪಿಸುತ್ತಾರೆ ಜಟೆಯ ಕೊಡವುತ್ತಾ. ಅಲಿ ಸಖ್ರ್ ಸಾಯಿ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಲ್ಲದೆ. ಕೊನೆಗೆ ಸ್ವತಃ ಅಲ್ಲಾಹುವೆ ನೊಂದು ನುಡಿದ, ಈ ತಾಯ ಕೊಲ್ಲುವ ಆಜ್ಞೆ ನಾನು ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ. ಸುತ್ತ ನಿಂತು ತಮಾಷೆ ನೋಡಿದವರೇ ಕೇಳಿ, ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಮುಗಿದಿಲ್ಲ ಕಥೆ, ಇನ್ನೂ ಮುಂದುವರಿಯುತ್ತದೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಹಿಂದೆ ಕೆಲವು ಪ್ರತಿಭಟನೆಗಳಾದಾಗ ನಗರ ನಕ್ಸಲ್ ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ಪದ ಜಾರಿಗೆ ಬಂತು. ಒಂದು ಗೋವು ನಗರ ನಕ್ಸಲ್ ಆದ ಕತೆ. ನನ್ನ ಪಾಡಿಗೆ ನಾನು, ನನ್ನ ಕರುವಿಗೆ ಹಾಲು ಕುಡಿಸಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಪಾಡಿಗೆ ನಾವಿದ್ದೆವು. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪಾಡೇನು ತಿಳಿಯದು ನಮಗೆ. ಗಂಗೆ ತುಂಗೆ ಗೌರಿ ಎಂದೆಲ್ಲ ಹೆಸರಿಟ್ಟು ನಮ್ಮ ಕೆಚ್ಚಲಿಗೆ ಕೈಯಿಕ್ಕಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹಾಲಿನ ವ್ಯಸನಕ್ಕೆ ಪುಣ್ಯ ಪುರುಷಾರ್ಥದ ನೆಪ ಹೇಳಿದಿರಿ. ದನದ ಮಾಂಸದ ದಾಸರು ಜಾತಿ ಧರ್ಮಗಳ ನೆಪದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಮರ್ಥಿಸಿಕೊಂಡಿರಿ. ಚಪ್ಪಲಿ ತೊಟ್ಟುಕೊಂಡು ತಮಟೆ ನುಡಿಸಿದಿರಿ. ಖಂಡವಿದೆಕೋ ಮಾಂಸವಿದೆಕೋ ಎಂದು ಬರೆದು ಹಾಡಿದಿರಿ. ನೀನಾರಿಗಾದೆಯೋ ಎಲೆ ಮಾನವ ಎಂದು ನಾನು ಕೇಳಲಿಲ್ಲ, ನೀವೇ ಕೇಳಿಕೊಂಡಿರಿ. ಸಂಚು ಮಾಡಿ ಕೊಂದಿರಿ, ಗೋಹತ್ಯೆ ಮಹಾಪಾಪ ಅಂತಲೂ ಸಾರಿದಿರಿ, ನರಬಲಿಯನ್ನೂ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರಿ. ರಾಸು ಕಾರಣವಲ್ಲ ಕೌಬಾಯ್ಗಳ ರಾಸಲೀಲೆಗೆ, ಸುಂದರಾಂಗದ ಸುಂದರಿಯರ ಹಿಂದು ಮುಂದಿನಲಿ ಎಂದು ಹಾಡಿ ಕೊಂಡಾಡಿದವರು ನೀವು. ನಂದಗೋಪನ ಗೋಪಿಕೆಯರ ಗೊಲಸಿನ ಸದ್ದಿಗೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಗೊರಸಿಗೂ ಅರ್ಥಾತ್ ಸಂಬಂಧವಿಲ್ಲ. ಆದರೂ ಹಾಲು ಮಾರುವ ಬಾಲಿಕೆಯರ ಸೊಂಟದ ವಿಷಯ ಮೆಚ್ಚು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಶಿಷ್ಯರಿಗೆ. ದನವ ಕಡಿಕಡಿದು ಬಸದಿಗೊಯ್ಯುತ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಎನ್ನುವ ಪರಮಪಾತಕ ಸಾಲಿಗೆ ಚಂದನವ ಎಂದು ತಿದ್ದಿ ಸರಿ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡಿರಿ. ಮುಂದೆ ಬಂದರೆ ಹಾಯಲಾರೆ, ಹಿಂದೆ ಬಂದರೆ ಒದೆಯಲಾರೆ ಎಂದು ನಾನು ಮಾತು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ. ಹುಲಿಯ ಬಾಯಿಗೆ ಬೀಳುವ ಕಥೆ ನನ್ನದಲ್ಲ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ತನುವ ಸಂತೈಸಿಕೊಂಡು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮನವ ನಿಯಂತ್ರಿಸಿಕೊಂಡು ಬಾಳ್ವೆ ಮಾಡಲು ಅಸಲು ಏನು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮು?